Hello, ninth graders. It's Mrs. Wallace. How are you? I just wanted to do this really quick video in case MLA citation is something new for you. Many of you may have used some type of bibliography, works cited, some type of structure for your citations in middle school. In case this is new for you, a lot of students also learn this in high school. It's something that you'll be spending some time in your history and your English classes. In history, the discipline of history, we use MLA, and it is one of a few different systems for citing sources. There's also APA, so psychology, for example, might use APA, and different disciplines tend to use different styles for their citations. MLA is always going to be for history class, and you will always have access to a few different places to get information, as well as some citation builders. There's places where you can plug in information that you have about a source and ultimately, build a citation. So here's a few things about citations. First of all, the way that we use citations, they tend to come up in two places. Say that you're doing a research paper, you might use citations at the very end of the paper to tell your reader exactly what sources you used. And we're very specific about the citation because we want the readers of our work to be able to find the exact sources that we used. And sometimes, I might have 3 textbooks that are very similar, but yet they are, published at different dates, or they are different versions of a textbook. So, they can actually vary, and sources can be very specific. So we're interested in noting a lot of detail about a source. And then we also will see citations inside our writing. So whether it's something that we're doing a research paper or it's the historical investigation, there will also be times where you will be citing sources, and as you use them and refer to them in your text, you'll be telling your reader the author of the source, where you got that source. It gives credit where credit's due, and it also adds some credibility to your argument. If you have done your research, you want to tell your reader that you have, and give your reader an idea of where you got your content. The citing guidelines that we see, this is referring to specifically the way you would build citations at the end of a paper, say in a works cited list. Okay, so say that I use 4 or 5 sources for my preliminary proposal. Maybe as I'm orally talking about my content overviews and the topic that I researched, I might refer to some of these sources. So now I'm ready to, at the end of my research, tell my listener or my reader exactly what sources I used, and that's where the citation comes in. We include a few different pieces of information, and these are the guidelines. Usually, number 1 is always going to be the author. In MLA, we're really interested in who's the author of the source. You're pinning some credibility on the author. Maybe it's a secondary source, and they're an expert in the topic that you're talking about. Whatever it is, we're interested in the author of the source. The title of the source and the title of the container. The container is where that source might be. You might read an excerpt from a book. A book might have several chapters, even written by different authors, and the container might be some type of anthology of essays or something. The container is where you found this particular work, but it's not necessarily the same as the title. The anthology could be very different than the title of the piece that you're reading. We're also interested in other information like other contributors or other authors, version, number, and like sometimes if it's a textbook or it's a periodical, it might have specific detail that's attached to that. Publisher, publisher date, and publication date and location, also of interest, right? Especially if you've got something that's a print book or a journal that was published at a particular point in time. We're interested in all of that, okay? And this information gets organized in a specific way, and that's all MLA is. It's like kind of the rules for how to build your citations. And this page here gives you a couple of examples. The very first one, and this is MLA 9th edition, and I'll give you a website to kind of check out so that you can do a citation for any type of source that you have, whether it's a work of art, a song, some type of, primary source, letter, whatever it is, you will be able to cite it. Pretty typical ones I have on the page here. The first one is a book. So say you go to the library, you actually get a book, or in class I say, hey, here is a book, that has a chapter on it, on that battle of World War II you're really interested in. You're going to take that book and build a citation. One thing that you can do is use the author, and the author's last name goes first. So in this case, the author is Patricia Henley. Henley goes first, comma, and then the author's first name and a period. You would also alphabetize all of your citations. So if you had 4 citations and they all started, the author's last name started with like A, B, and C, they would just go in alphabetical order above Henley. The Hummingbird House is italicized, and that is the name of the book. McMurray is the name of the publishing house, the publisher of the book, and 1999 is the date. And in this case, there's no other information that's relevant, okay? I have everything that I need for this particular book. For the next source is a web page, and this one is a little bit more complicated because it has a couple of different pieces in it. We do have an author in this case, Lundman, Susan. So Susan Lundman is the author. How to Make Vegetarian Chili, which is now in quotes. That is the title of the web page that maybe a student is looking at. So it's probably a source that talks about how to make vegetarian chili. The publisher or organizer of this website is eHow. For some of your sources, it might be the New York Archives, it might be the Holocaust Museum, it could be a variety, the History Channel or A&E. That's kind of like who's behind the website, right? And sometimes with a website, you might not even have an individual author, okay? You might just have the title and, essentially the A&E or whichever. The very last thing that's going on here is the URL, right? So when you're building your list of citations, rather than just putting the URL address, try to include the author's name, last name first, the title of the source that you read, and then who produced the website or which group produced the website, U.S. Congress, whatever it is. The last one is a periodical. So this would be useful if you found online, maybe you're looking at like Life magazine or Time magazine, even an historical one, New York Times article. You might also find in JSTOR academic journals like Military History Today, and some historian has published in there. In this case, very similar type of style. In this case, you have the last name and the first name of the author, or the period. You have the title of the article or the essay that the person wrote. So it's in quotes, okay? So in this case, conflicting nationalisms and so on. And then the last part is, in this case, the name of the journal, Tulsa Studies in Women's Literature, Military History Today, whatever the name of the journal is. And because this is a journal and it publishes multiple times during the year, this one happens to have a volume number and a number, and then a date, and also page numbers. With the book, you might also include page numbers. If you were using Patricia Henley's book and referring just to a few pages, you could also put page numbers under the book. So there's rules. They're expressed kind of as a guide. Once you get a hang of the rules, you'll know how to build a citation anywhere out of anything. So it does get easier. Use these as examples and work to try to develop your MLA. There is a website, and I put it under the assignment. So it's actually under the assignment where the task is outlined for you. And it's called the Purdue OWL. You can also just Google that, Purdue, P-U-R-D-U-E, OWL, like the animal. They have a very nice online guide for MLA 9th edition and pretty much any type of source that you could possibly imagine. There's an example on this website for you. There's also videos and a variety of different unusual circumstances. In class, we'll talk a little bit more about what happens when you find a source that's in another source, that's maybe even in another source. There's always going to be some challenging situations. We will work on that in class, okay? Have a great night, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday, okay? Be well.